Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA Broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, as usual, we've got a fantastic program lined out for you today. No effort was spared to bring you the highest quality content possible. And I want to thank you for the emails I've received already. Thank you very much. It is good to be back. Thank you for having us and inviting me and the show into your home or your workplace, your earbuds, or whatever it is in the world you do whenever you listen to or consume this content. I want to thank you for supporting us here at the MOA Broadcast. If you have any questions, comments, or emails, feel free to send them to info@gearconvoy.com. There's the train in the background. As we mentioned yesterday, we're doing this broadcast from instead of the sound booth, this will be done in the living room. It's 21 degrees outside. So we are sitting here in front of a roaring fire. You may hear a little noise. Cobra, the black shop cat, has been a little more vocal tonight than usual, so you may hear him in the background. Bacon, the dog, is asleep or looking like it soundly, staring at the fire and warming his belly. So probably won't hear too much out of him. Let me get a quick sip here. All right, what do we have on the docket today? We may do a slightly shorter version today, or a shorter show today, since we're doing back-to-back episodes here, 2 days in a row. Okay, Season 2, Episode 1 show highlights. We have out-of-control cops patrolling the streets. Man, I tell you what, this is going to continue to be an issue, but whatever. We're not going to be solving it here on the MOA broadcast, but we'll certainly talk about it. More death in the wilderness in California. Do axes belong on the trail? That is the axe, A-X-E. Do axes belong on the trail? And Juicy Booty goes buck wild in Florida. When I read this story, I knew immediately that Juicy Booty needed to make it to the Make It Out Alive broadcast. Oh my goodness. Before we even get to that, so if you listened to yesterday's episode, Season 2, Episode 1, this is Season 2, Episode 2, already getting hate mail because of the stuff we talked about, or I talked about with ICE yesterday. And folks, again, we want to reaffirm yet again the commitment to not sit here and take sides politically on this show. That's not the point. I mentioned just yesterday, or in the last episode, how much I'm tired of all of the news sources now are so partisan and biased. I just want news. I don't need opinions on every single news story that I get. So if you haven't heard yet, in the episode yesterday, or Episode 1 of Season 2, I mentioned about all these people that are being influenced. In my opinion, I believe a lot of people are being influenced either by influencers, the media, or friends and family, or a misplaced sense of duty to get out there and resist ICE. Now, whatever your thoughts are on ICE, what they're doing is and has been legal for decades, if not longer, when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants. Now, I understand the feelings. I mean, I have lived in communities with lots of, let's just say migrants. Let's leave it at that. And I understand that you develop friendships, relationships, and with family, it's a totally different thing. I get all that. But whenever it comes time to interfere with the law, if that's what you choose to do, then that is your choice. I love freedom. And I think everyone should do what they believe is right, as long as you're willing to suffer the consequences, good, bad, or ugly. Then just be prepared and know that there is an excellent chance that you're going to catch some charges if you get out there and try and obstruct ICE or DHS or the police or whatever it is. So if that's what you're dedicated to doing, then that's your business. But there's no need to get mad at me. Everything I said was true. If you can prove me wrong, you've done me a favor. So. The other thing was I got hate mail, and I wanted to address this. I got some of this over the break. I didn't run the show for November and December of 2025. I was just too far behind and too backed up and stuff, and I didn't want to put out a low-quality program. So I got hate mail about picking on women due to some of my comments about women. And number one, nothing I said was untrue. No one ever picked on the content or the veracity of the statements that I made. It was just the tone or the attitude of it there. So, but if you think I'm hard on women or have some kind of problem with being, making jokes about fat jokes or lazy jokes or whatever else, holy smokes, I'm 10 to 20 times harder on men. Most of the comments I made about women were jokes. The things I say about men, I'm very, very serious about. I don't even have respect for half or more of the men out there that I encounter on a regular basis. Let me break it down for you. Most men today are, in my opinion, a sad joke, a representation of what a man should be. And I'm not talking about everybody has to go out there and be Rambo or Commando, or there's Cobra in the background. Calm down, buddy. Or, be a millionaire, or, whatever, all this, whatever you're, what you may think of the ideal of a man is supposed to be. I'm in the custom knife and gun world and so forth. I run in those circles. So in that industry, I encounter a lot of dudes talk about knives, guns, preparedness, outdoors, survival, all this other kind of stuff, training. Let me tell you something. I go to a couple of trade shows and then gun shows and knife shows each year. Okay. And what I have seen, it's been gradually trending this way for a long time, but it is now to the point where it is so stark that it's hard to miss it. When you walk into these shows, most of these guys that are walking around are so morbidly obese. They are gigantic, enormous orca whale fat. And it is in half of them are walking around while they're obese at these shows where they're buying more knife and gun and self-defense accessories and stuff, and they're sitting there eating chili dogs and cinnamon buns and all this other stuff and cheeseburgers and all this stuff while they're walking around just sitting. You can almost hear them getting fatter. Funnel cake is what I was trying to think of. Sitting there, I saw this guy. He was so fat. He couldn't even control the flow of the powdered sugar, the confectioner sugar, whatever it is, on his funnel cake. It was just streaming down his shirt and like in a sluice between his gigantic man boobs and going and landing on the giant Mount Vesuvius of his belly that was sticking out. No shame. His t-shirt only covered about the top 60% of his belly. So like 40% was on this huge white swath of flesh just hanging out. He had Dunlap disease. And if you're too young to know what that means, it means when your belly is Dunlapped over your belt. And it was disgusting. And he's sitting there shoveling more junk crap food into his mouth. Now, what is the point of taking and spending all this money buying gun and knife accessories and being, going so you can go out there and play dress up and act like you're going to run and gun whenever you couldn't even sprint to the buffet line at Ponderosa without going into cardiac arrest? I mean, some of these guys are Golden Corral rejects. There's no way they would make it. They couldn't run 20 feet, much less 20 yards or a mile or something like that. And what is the point of all that? Men have a duty, in my opinion, and this is why I hold men to a different standard. I'm not saying it's higher necessarily than women, but it's a different standard. Men have, in my opinion, and I was raised very hardcore, old school, you might say, in the Midwest, and men have a duty to take care of not just women, but society. If there's a problem, it's men's job, their duty to step up and take the lead in correcting it and addressing it and helping it. Doesn't mean women can't do it, but in my opinion, that responsibility falls traditionally to men to at least take the lead. Now, does that mean that women can't have an equal part in helping to resolve the problem or fix it or have a even better idea than a man? Absolutely not. They certainly can. That is not at all what I'm saying. But taking the lead, for better or worse, should fall to men. And a lot of these guys are so stinking fat and out of shape, it's embarrassing. And I mean, I am telling you right now, you can sit there and you can smell the you can smell the talcum powder that these guys got to dump into their shorts by the shovel load so they don't get chafed walking around these gun shows while they sweat and their thighs rub against each other. You can hear it. It's like a dull hum in the background. So anyway, that is what it is. I don't know, take that rant for whatever, and it added a little out of order there. But I just can't. Yeah, it's not about men or women. It's about responsibility. And how in the world do you expect to take the lead or get out there and deal with a bad situation, much less an actual survival situation or when something actually goes wrong, collapse of society or whatever it may be, if you can't run 20 yards without redlining your blood pressure and your heart rate. So do with that information what you will. And again, I'm not saying everybody has to be Rambo or Commando or super soldier, but at least take an interest in a little bit, a modicum of health and physical fitness. So, and another thing, hang on, let me get a quick drink here. Another thing is the declining quality of journalism. Holy smokes. When I prepare this show, I try and put a lot of effort into it. I do put a lot of effort in. I try and bring the highest quality product that I can, because there are tons of choices out there for people to listen to content they want to consume and so forth. And I don't want to just sit here and do fart jokes and bathroom jokes and, just skim through and read headlines and whatever else. Even whenever I read news stories, I try and bring something of quality to the listener so that they can take away, there's a takeaway for them. And, it all hinges on that make it out alive theme of situational awareness, preparedness, and so forth. But it is getting to the point now when I go, and I've mentioned this before when it comes to partisanship, that a lot of these news articles are so partisan that it is almost impossible to just get the straight facts. The other problem is they don't even adhere to the basics of journalism, the who, what, when, where, why, and that kind of thing. They become partisan. They editorialize the news. The facts and the events and this is out of sequence. It's out of order. It's missing critical information. And oftentimes, this is one of the most difficult ones of all. Oftentimes, it lacks a resolution. When you have a news story or an article or a show like this, at some point you need to have a resolution where you kind of wrap things up. And they don't give you the final, okay, what happened? And even in one of the stories I prepared tonight, I had to go back in and extract the information from 2 or 3 different articles so that I could put a final resolution on the story, so that whenever you, as the listener, you hear me going through this, it needs to have a certain amount of logical sequencing to it. You don't want to do the middle in the beginning, followed by the end, and then finish up with the beginning. That doesn't make any sense. You need to have some type of linear quality to all this so that you can pay attention and extract the information while you're doing something else, driving or drinking a coffee or working, or just, hearing these words without seeing it visually in front of you, and follow along. And a lot of this journalism, it's absolutely horrible. This is a PG show, so I won't say what I was thinking. It's horrible. And it's very, very difficult sometimes because it requires me, and I'm sure other people go through this, to have to go through and pull up the same exact news story from 2, 3, or 4 different sources just so I can get all the facts. And then instead of just pulling it from one source, one article, I have to paste together and cobble together all these facts and then rearrange it so that it makes sense. So anyway, it's a shame. I remember that was one of the things I learned in grade school: who, what, where, when, why. And, there's a certain theme and a resolution. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end, a first, second, and third act, however you want to put it. But it is certainly lacking in journalism today. Okay, now let's get down to it. We've got some information here in the show. If you recall, in our last episode, we talked about the hiker death on Mount Baldy in California. Okay, a 19-year-old man fell, apparently we don't know exactly, pushed, fell, whatever. But he did fall 500 feet one way or another and died. And then they found 2 other Guatemalan nationals in this area outside of Los Angeles in California. And so 3 deaths. Now, just 30, 40 miles or 30, 40 minutes away, depending how you want to split it, we go to Riverside County. And I mentioned this yesterday in the last episode, the last show, but didn't have time to get into it. This just happened this past Saturday, I think. Yeah, January 17th. So that would have been around Saturday, I think. Tragic death of a hiker in Riverside County in a remote mountainous area on East State Highway 74 in Enza, Riverside County, that's California. A hiker died on January 17, 2026, after attempting to find friends he believed were lost on a trail. So apparently there were a group of 4 hikers I don't know how big the whole group was because, again, I went through 3 different articles and had difficulty piecing this all together. But there was a group of at least 5 people, at least 5, in this area in Riverside County. 4 of them went out for a hike and they did not return as expected. So a 5th member of their party, now I don't know if he was there by himself at the trailhead or what, but he became worried about the hikers, his other 4 buddies, and he went out alone to try and locate them. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him. The Riverside County Sheriff's Aviation Unit and Riverside Mountain Rescue Unit were called to the area that evening. They located and airlifted the original 4 hikers who got lost or didn't return or whatever in the world happened to them. They airlifted them to safety, and they were taken for medical evaluation. However, later in the search, they found the 5th hiker, the one who went out looking for. This was the would-be rescuer, dead at the bottom of a steep, approximately 150-foot rock face. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, unfortunately, this is too early in the whole timeline of events. Man, that fire feels so good. I just looked at the thermometer or the thermostat, whatever. It is 84 degrees in here, and that may sound hot, but I had just stepped outside prior to starting the show, and it was 21 degrees. And while it's nowhere near as cold as it gets out here, that is enough to get your attention. Anyway, pardon the intrusion of the Riverside County Coroner's Bureau has taken over the investigation. The identity of the deceased has not been released publicly. So again, another, it's a shame, another fatality here. This is just 30, 40 minutes away from the Mount Baldy debacle that happened, I believe, on December 29, 2025. There were 3 fatalities there. And again, we try and insert a what's the takeaway at the end of all this thing. Honestly, I don't know exactly what happened, so it's hard to provide some sort of synopsis or takeaway for this whole thing or critique it. Obviously, sympathy for the young man and his family and friends and whatever else was involved. There's just not enough information to really form a lot of conclusions yet based on what I saw. But if nothing else, if you don't know what you could do better, at the very least, you got to be careful out there, man. The wilderness is still extremely dangerous. And we talked about this, the familiarity breeds contempt concept in our last episode because we spoke about Portland with Mount Hood and then the Mount Baldy being with both of these mountains. They're in close proximity to major cities. And what happens is city people in general don't really understand, in my opinion, they don't really understand how quickly things can turn in the wilderness because they've spent so little actual rough time out in the dirt. They go out and they do a day hike and they think they're rolling around the dirt and they're living the country life and so forth. Or they go to a hayride or a bonfire or they go visit a farm and they think they understand what it's like. And I'm not saying it's some unknowable thing or some great mystery of the wilderness. I'm just simply saying that unless you spend time out there, hunters, fishermen, and people that spend a lot backpacking, hiking, and that live in that environment realize how dangerous the wilderness can be. It'll take your life in a heartbeat. Things like falls, exposure, drowning, wild animal attacks, all these kind of things that you may not ever encounter in 50 day hikes. All it takes is for one of these things to go wrong and multiple people wind up dying like we saw here. So, you got to be really careful. That's for the situational awareness. And again, if you're new to the show or you've never heard that expression before, situational awareness is a very simple concept. It simply means being aware of your surroundings, thinking about what could happen, what could go right, what could go wrong, and then how would you react and be prepared for that. But really, it boils down to thinking ahead and preparing. It really is that simple. And, sometimes bad things happen no matter what you do. That you can do all the preparation in the world and bad things happen. It doesn't work out. That is just a sad fact of life and death, especially in the wilderness. Somebody once said, if you're going to get frisky with Mother Nature, bring protection because you never know when it's going to go bad. And when it does, it can go very, very bad. But those risks are amplified and multiplied whenever you are not prepared and you haven't thought about I've been hiking and backpacking with people who were bringing canned goods. They didn't have things like flashlight or a knife or a reliable fire starting device or any at all know-how. And I know I phrased that improperly, but any know-how at all to start a fire, to build shelter, to, any of these things. It's scary. and then they're surprised whenever it turns around and bites them. So you got to be careful. And again, our condolences to the families of the people that passed in both the Mount Baldy and the Riverside County incident here. Okay, let's see. Where are we at on time? All right, we're doing okay. Let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, the out-of-control cops. Holy smokes. Guys, I have said a number of times, even though I've kind of come down hard on some of these bad cops, I support law and order. We need law and order and law enforcement in our life. Trust me, if you've ever been in or involved or around a riot or any kind of situation like that, I can tell you the last thing you want in your life is pure chaos or anarchy or bedlam. It is bad news all the way around. It is not going to be fun at all. However, the problem we are seeing now with the proliferation of cell phone, camera videos and body cam videos and dash cam videos and stuff, we are now seeing that a lot of these police officers, not the good ones, I support, you can do what you want. I support good policing. We need that. We need community policing, which is not just enforcing laws. It is being a part of your community and keeping it safe and building relationships and safety and so forth, looking out for your neighbor. Being a good neighbor is really what it boils down to. But we're seeing so much more of the bad cops that are out there, and some of these guys are utterly insane, in my opinion. I'm going to list a couple of just brief examples that I've seen, and a lot of these are connected to these First Amendment auditors that I've kind of discussed a number of times. And, to recap on that, in my opinion, a lot of the guys that do the quote-unquote First Amendment auditing, they're not really trying to affect change. They're just trying to get clicks. They're trying to sell ads on their YouTube or their social media videos, in my opinion, and build an audience and so forth. The ones that are really trying to affect change are the ones that are not going out and just antagonizing or provoking people. There are some of these guys that go out in groups of like 3 or 4 of these First Amendment auditors, and they all have cameras with masks on, and they're like swarming people the minute they pay them any attention, and they try and provoke them into a fist fight or a shoving match or a pepper spray or whatever. But the ones that are trying to make and affect real change that's beneficial to the average common man, so to speak, are the ones that then follow up. If there's a complaint to be filed, if there's a lawsuit to be filed, and they do the hard part afterwards. Getting the video is the easy part. Following it up and doing the part that actually makes a police department, discipline someone who's out of control or follow up on charges that may not have been, just or right or so forth. That's the hard part. Okay. So there's a channel that I get on YouTube that I watch occasionally, and I got to say, I don't usually plug products or services, but I got the YouTube Premium because I was at a trade show one time and I was playing music in the background. Long story short, it kept interrupting with ads, and I wanted to download a certain piece of music and put it on loop, and the easiest way to do it was to do the YouTube Premium. It's like $13. I got to say, I highly recommend it. I never thought I would get it, but not just because it's $13 a month, but just I don't like subscriptions. I don't like services, but it gets rid of all the ads. So if you watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, unless there are ads that are inserted by the program itself, it gets rid of the ads and stuff, and it lets you just watch the show uninterrupted. You can also turn off your phone or your device, put it in your pocket, and still listen to your earbuds and so forth, and do it that way, which I like a lot because I like to have something that I can listen to in the background while I'm working and doing things. Anyway, there's a channel called Audit the Audit. They got a really big following, like 1 million or something followers or whatever. And what they do is, instead of just doing this thing where they go out and provoke the police, they show you the video clip and body cam and all this stuff, and then they provide a narration and dig into the actual laws that are involved and what laws, policies, and so forth were either violated or affirmed or whatever else. And you learn something from the whole thing. Okay, so Audit the Audit, they had a couple of different videos that I enjoyed recently, and a couple of them were the guy that I mentioned this in the last episode. This guy was out there with one of those propane torch things like you use to melt ice in your driveway. He was singeing the weeds underneath his FCC-approved ham radio antenna tower, okay? And so cops, somehow somebody called the cops that he was, I don't know, doing a weed fire or whatever. And the cops showed up, and within, I don't know, like 30 seconds to a minute, they arrested this poor old dude. He's like 76 years old or 67, I don't know. He's an older gentleman, elderly gentleman. Within a minute or two of being there, they arrested him for arson, for singeing weeds on his own property in broad daylight. And it's not even funny, but the insanity of this scenario of arresting, and can you imagine somebody pulling up and arresting your grandpa for burning weeds on his own yard in broad daylight with a propane torch? We're not talking about an open fire or like, a bonfire or a weed fire, trash fire, whatever. He's just got this thing that's just putting out a flame and singeing weeds, and he winds up in handcuffs in the back of a cop car inside of 2 minutes. It's insane. That was another one. What was the, this guy had a parking dispute with the lawnmower dude who's going around mowing lawns. Excuse me. He's mowing lawns and doing weed control and whatever in this subdivision or a cul-de-sac or whatever. Somehow he was a crusty old man. I'm gonna be honest. He was a little bit, he was a little sassy and feisty, but he got into some kind of parking dispute with this guy. Somebody called the cops, and long story short, within a few minutes of showing up, the cops had barged into his house and arrested him inside of his home for a parking offense that they didn't even witness. And that happened with the guy singeing his weeds too. They wound up pushing the guy into his own home, and they I believe it was inside of his house. At the very least, he was on his porch. And you're getting arrested on your own property for these minor offenses. It is insane. And the last one was, I just saw this guy, and in some of these cases, the people do follow up. One of those, the guy that, for the parking offense thing, the cop did wind up getting fired. He either resigned or got fired or whatever else in discipline, it was utterly insane, in my opinion, when I see these videos of where they're acting. And then this other guy this just happened recently. He was driving, a cop followed him for like 5 miles, wound up pulling him over and ultimately arresting him for crossing a solid white line. Okay? He called it, I forget what he called it, violating a traffic control device or something. But he crossed a solid white line. That's all he did. He wasn't driving like a maniac. He wasn't like, drinking out of a Jack Daniels bottle and tossing empties out of the window as he's flying down the highway. He crossed a solid white line, and he pulled this guy over, and the guy asked for his name and badge number and stuff, and the cop got so butthurt and into his feelings that he arrested the guy. And to show you that I'm not making this up, the guy wasn't being, the cop was out of control. The on-duty, the OIC, officer in charge, whatever they call it, I don't know, each department's got a different name for it, but the sergeant or lieutenant or supervisor, whoever he was that had control of this, he kicked the arrest and knocked the guy loose because he didn't think it was a valid reason to arrest somebody, and it wasn't. Can you imagine driving down the road and getting arrested for crossing a solid white line? The guy wasn't speeding. He didn't blow a stop sign. He didn't run a red light. He crossed a solid white line, allegedly, according to the cop. The guy had a dash cam. He said it didn't happen. So anyway, my point, if there is one, and I get it, because some of the show is just me talking about things that I find interesting. That's the privilege I get of having, operating this show and running it and producing it and all. I can kind of talk about things that I find interesting. Is the insanity of this. And there are a lot of good cops out there, but man, I tell you what, you never know what you're going to get. I don't have time. Where are we at on time on this episode? We're not going to have time to get into it. I had a couple of interactions with police officers and deputies recently myself. It wasn't anything real bad, but it was completely pointless, and it was just pure ego that was being flexed on me. No law was broken. I didn't get a ticket, just being pulled over and harassed because somebody felt like doing it, I guess, is my opinion. And that's what we're seeing more and more is these officers, the not good ones, the bad ones, whatever you want to call it, they have a firearm and this badge and the legal authority and ability to essentially enforce their opinion on the street. In court, it may get overturned, it may get changed, it may get corrected, but on the street, they're going to win. They got guns, tasers, pepper spray, batons, and lots of backup. They're going to win on the street. And it's terrifying to realize how quickly your life can change. Can you imagine driving? Let's say you're going to the grocery store, you're going out to get a cheeseburger, whatever. And you see that this cop followed this guy for like 3 or 5 miles. I forget the exact circumstances. You see this cop following you for miles. And he eventually pulls you over, arrests you, tows your car, searches your vehicle. You go to jail. You're going to get processed in, strip searched. It's a humiliating process because you crossed a solid white line. I mean, to me, that's a bit of a bridge too far. My God. And then you find out that the sergeant the officer in charge, whatever he's called, he winds up the top dog on the shift, lets you go because he agrees it was utterly insane. The guy apologized and didn't think it was a good arrest, if you want, for lack of a better term, good, bad. It wasn't a good arrest. It wasn't right. And now you still got to deal with all this stuff. You got to go to your vehicle. You got to deal with that. It does stick in your craw for quite a bit. You sit there and you're kind of in a bad mood about it, and you have generally a bad attitude and disposition towards the whole thing because some dude with a gun decided to basically impose his will upon you for no good reason. So, it's a bit of a problem. Is there a solution? I don't know. It's going to be difficult. But yeah, anyway. If there's a takeaway from all that, I do like that channel. Again, I don't give shout outs or plugs very often, but the Audit channel on YouTube, I really enjoy their stuff because they actually show the beginning, end, middle, and end, and the whole resolution of the situation, along with the appropriate legal statutes and information and so forth, the salient information. Okay, where are we? You know what? We're not going to get into the Axis today again because we just don't have time. Let's go ahead. Let me get a quick sip of my beverage, and then we'll get into juicy booty. Okay, folks, we go to Miami, Florida. Police say they have arrested a Miami woman who was identified by victims through a fight video and a Facebook profile known as, quote unquote, known as, quote unquote, juicy booty. This article or story comes to us from WVSN.com. According to the arrest report, Denisha Octavia Woods. I'm sorry, I'm looking ahead at the... I'm trying to get that pronounced right. Denisha Octavia Woods, 38 years of age, according to the article, was taken into custody Wednesday after... Oh my God. Wednesday afternoon after detectives linked her to a large fight near Crestwood Park where multiple juveniles and adults were involved in a street brawl that stemmed from an earlier school dispute. The arrest report states one victim told officers she, that is Juicy, and her sister went to the park after being challenged to a fight. Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't Juicy just yet, only to be attacked by approximately 20 to 30 females. Investigators said video of the incident shows a heavy-set woman. I saw the pictures. I saw the pictures. Let me just say the newspaper is being very kind. A heavy-set woman striking two victims with a metal baseball bat, causing injuries including a closed fracture of the top of the shoulder blade. Holy crap. The old scapula. The victim later identified Woods, that is, Juicy Booty, as the alleged attacker, telling detectives she recognized her as the mother of another girl involved and provided Woods' Facebook account listed under the name Denisha Woods, a.k.a. Juicy Booty. Detectives reported that the victim positively identified Juicy in a photo lineup. A second victim and an independent witness also told police they saw Juicy strike the victim with a bat, a baseball bat, allegedly. Woods, a.k.a. Juicy Booty, was arrested near Northwest 12th Avenue and 29th Street. She later denied the allegations, telling detectives she was not present during the incident, according to police. Ms. Woods, a.k.a. Juicy Booty, we wish you the best in your legal situation. Denisha Octavia Woods, a.k.a. Juicy Booty, faces charges of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and aggravated child abuse, according to authorities. That's gonna do it, folks. Remember, don't wait to prepare for an emergency, and if you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.